Good morning. Good morning, folks. It's your boy, the host with the most. Welcome to another edition of Just My Opinion Podcast, episode 4. We're going to be talking about what in the Carmen San Diego hell is going on with the Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers has done it again. Another game, another L. Now, before we get into the Los Angeles Lakers, I'd first like to say this. Someone in the comment section on my last episode talked about the possibility of doing a call-in show. And for those out there that want me to do call-in shows where you guys come in and you tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, or if you want to debate against me, or if you want to co-sign with me, if you guys want me to do a layout such as that, I'm going to have to see consistency with you guys, okay? I need those likes up, okay? I need that comment section lit, all right? Particularly if you won't call in shows, and I need consistency from you guys, okay? I just don't need just one guy telling me something that the rest of you guys really don't care or really just not interested in. So I'm just going to need some consistency. I'm also going to need some consistency from you guys as far as, rate, comment, subscribe, as well as sharing this podcast and sharing this episode with your friends, family, as well as your followers. With that being said, let's get into the Los Angeles Lakers. All right. What is going on with the Los Angeles Lakers? I made a video talking about the Los Angeles Lakers. I made several videos of the makeup of this roster. I gave you guys my opinion about this roster. Now, before we get into the Los Angeles Lakers, before we get into certain players of the Los Angeles Lakers, I first like to state this. You always got to give people their props. You always got to give people their flowers. All right? So let's give flowers and props to Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Frank Vogel, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, Rondo. Let's give them their props and their flowers. And also, to be fair and to be completely honest, now, when you have a collection of these type of players on your roster, experience and chemistry really means a lot, particularly when you're playing among this current group. I mean, now these guys have probably played in in the All-Star games. These guys have probably played in Olympic games, but these guys have not played. And let's just be fair and let's be honest. On and maybe in a collegiate level. But these guys have not played regular season basketball where it's not a small sample size. It's not just one game out of the year. It's not several games out of a course of 4 years. These guys have to play among themselves, with themselves, throughout this calendar NBA regular season. And let's just be fair and be honest, these guys have not. Okay, so the chemistry is probably off a little bit, but in time, hopefully the chemistry get together. Hopefully these guys can coexist with one another, because this is it. There's no plan B, C, or D. There's no exit strategy for all those out there that go on the vlogs or go on these talking head talk shows, this, that, and the third, on radio, television, armchair quarterbacking, barbershop talking. Okay, there's no exit strategy. There's no exit strategy. There's no lifeboat on deck. Okay, this is it. Now, I said in my last video, and I also said this in numerous occasions, just like boxing, style makes fights. And when you have a collection of players, one or two things could make this difficult to work in your favor. Particularly if the players all are similar players, they pretty much play the same position. They were former All-Stars. They were former leaders of other teams. That could be difficult. Now, I also said in my video a couple of weeks ago that this collection of players and this roster of the Los Angeles Lakers reminds me of something that was tried but failed in Cleveland when LeBron James wanted to added Derrick Rose. He also had Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. He had Dwayne Wade. He had Green. He had a lot of players on that roster that were former players. And then later on in that season, they pick up the services of Isaiah Thomas when they did that trade. They got Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving went to Boston. Isaiah Thomas went to Cleveland. And the rest, they say, not is history, but it's bad history. And you know how that pretty much ended. That team almost missed the playoffs. And if it wasn't for the front office of the Cleveland Cavaliers figuring out ways to get rid of those players that LeBron James co-signed on. LeBron James wanted these players. LeBron James are playing NBA 2K GM in real life in the NBA. It's one thing to play this on a video game. It's another thing entirely when it's the actual games. Okay? And they got rid of those players, and they got some players that, they're not all-star players, but they fit very well with one LeBron James. And that team, went deep into the playoffs. Okay, they beat the Boston Celtics without Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving was injured that season, which, by the way, that Boston Celtic team went deep in the playoffs without the services of Kyrie Irving. When Kyrie Irving played the next following year, that team struggled to make the playoffs. Okay, like I said earlier, style makes fights. Just because you have the best player or collection of the best players or the best players in recent past and recent memory does not translate into winning titles. And that's what the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James is doing. Now, I'm not going to put everything on LeBron James, even though LeBron James co-signed all of these players. But to be fair and to be honest, they haven't really played together as a team in the National Basketball Association. Now, Carmelo Anthony had played with Russell Westbrook, so he knows what he's getting himself involved with playing with Russell Westbrook. This is not going to be the show where we just bash Russell Westbrook. A lot of people are not aware of this, but career-wise, Russell Westbrook may have a ton of turnovers, but guess who's behind Russell Westbrook in turnovers? It's one LeBron James. The only difference is, and why we don't hold LeBron James to the same standard like we hold Russell Westbrook, is LeBron James has titles. He's decorated. He's suited and booted. He's the chosen one. He's the king to a lot of you guys. This is the same guy that a lot of you guys say that doesn't pass Michael Jordan. So the reason why we don't bring up LeBron James turnovers is LeBron James has hardware to cover those flaws. When you look at Russell Westbrook, that's the basis of his resume. He had tons of turnovers. Russell Westbrook, that's the first thing come out of a lot of people's mouths. Russell Westbrook, yeah, that guy has a ton of turnovers. And then you get into the meat and potatoes of Russell Westbrook. He's an ISO guard. He's a two guard who is disguised as a one guard, and his talent does not blend well with teams that are trying to contend for a championship. Now, if you have a team that's trying to sell a bunch of tickets, then that's the player you need to get. If you have a team that wants to spark interest in their community, then that's the player that you want to get. You want to get a Russell Westbrook. He's a walking triple-double. His style fits where he can get a triple-double if he wants to. The opportunities are high for him every single game. He's a walking triple-double. That's what you get with Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, no matter how many stops he went to, has never resonated into as far as winning championships. When Russell Westbrook was drafted by the Oklahoma City Thunder, he was the ooh and ah guy, a walking triple-double, making magnificent dunks and acrobatic shots and things of that nature. And a lot of the people in the Oklahoma City community loved that. It worked well for their fan base, but it did not translate it in as far as success for the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's the reason why Kevin Durant left OKC. He said to himself, I can't win with this guy. I can't win with him, even though he was his biggest supporter. He went to the Golden State Warriors, and the rest they say is history. He done won multiple championships with them. Russell Westbrook did not like the fact that Kevin Durant left him, but he fully understood why James Harden left. Technically, the reason why James Harden left Oklahoma City Thunder because the Oklahoma City Thunder organization, Sam Presti, did not want to, pay too much for James Harden. But that's another time for another story. So what happened? They won some games, but not meaningful games. They had some good seasons, but not brilliant seasons. The man won MVP, but it did not translate it as far as the organization moving forward, as far as going deep into the playoffs. When Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder organization saw enough, and this is far as they're going to reach with Russell Westbrook, they traded Russell Westbrook to the Houston Rockets. Paired him up with James Harden. Everyone assumed that this would equal success. You got two ISO guards that need the ball the most in order to be successful. I don't understand why people thought that this was going to be a brilliant move. It was like oil and water. It just did not mix. It went so ridiculous. It went to the point of, well, Russell Westbrook, he will dominate on the left side of the court, and James Harden will dominate on the right side of the court. That's how ridiculous it is. Now, if the sport of basketball had the ability where you can have two balls in the court, then this would have been very successful. But these guys are ISO guards. Russell Westbrook is an ISO 2 guard disguised as a point guard. Yes, he was still getting the triple doubles, but that's as far as it went. That lasted 1 year. Even James Harden said, I can't win with this guy. Went to the organization, I can't win with this guy. Yeah, he's my friend. Yeah, I love him. Yeah, he's my brother from another mother. But I can't win with this guy. I'm having the same problem with him as Kevin Durant had in Oklahoma City with OKC. That's why Kevin Garnett went to the Golden State Warriors. So that 1 year, they traded him to the Washington Wizards. Him and Bradley Beal, everyone was talking about, that's going to be a lovely combination. Those guys are going to go deep into the playoffs. They may be a threat in the East. And none of that transpired. He still got his triple doubles. He still was high on the turnover list. But like I said earlier, style makes fights. And Russell Westbrook's style does not mix well with organized team basketball. Not to say he's a ball hogger. It is what it is. 1 year with the Washington Wizards, and then LeBron says, you know what? I think I can do something with Russell Westbrook. Once again, LeBron is putting on his NBA 2K. He's in GM mode thinking, well, let's just get rid of the players that didn't mind playing defense, may struggled on the offensive end, but didn't mind playing defense when you talk about Kuz and when you talk about Montrezl Harrell, which I wasn't a big fan of Montrezl Harrell. I told you guys a year ago, a couple of years ago, that this was not going to work. You're potentially getting a guy that's playing for a contract. He's great down low, but terrible on the perimeter side of things. Cannot give you a threat as far as a three-point game. You have to understand the rules and regulations of today's basketball. Playing down low doesn't mean a hill of beans in the basketball that we're seeing today. You have to have the ability and the capability of running up and down the court trying to shoot the most. Everyone is copying and pasting the Golden State Warriors MO. Everyone wants to be a shooter. Everyone wants to be Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Everyone wants to be those guys. Even LeBron James want to be those guys. Once again, style makes fights. I thought them getting Montrezl Harrell was a bad thing, but I'd rather for the Lakers to keep Montrezl Harrell and Kuz. I wasn't a huge fan of Kuz. He was up and down with his dependability. One night he can score 30, the next night he won't score anything. But consistently, he was a better defender than Russell Westbrook. I wasn't a huge fan of Montrezl Harrell, but consistently he didn't mind doing the dirty work, which is grabbing rebounds, being a threat at the low post, and defending, which he's a terrible defender, but at least he tries to defend. Russell Westbrook, on the other hand, does not even think about defending. He scores, and then he just runs down the other side of the court, and he's just there. Okay? He's a liability on your defensive end. Whoever Russell Westbrook is checking on the defensive end, they're going to have a magnificent night, because Russell Westbrook is not even going to try to attempt to play defense. Once again, I was a stern believer. I wasn't a believer of Montrezl Harrell nor Kuz, but I'd rather have those two guys than what they ultimately gave up to get the services of Russell Westbrook. I also said that I felt like the Lakers lost a lot of their core players. Yeah, I know the Lakers were trying to get back into their old roster that won that championship with Dwight Howard and Rondo, and now they're doing it a year later when they should have kept those players and just build on what players that you had when you won that title. You could have easily defended your title, but last year they were trying to defend their title, and they couldn't even get past Phoenix. Couldn't get past Phoenix. You gave up on Rondo because you thought that was too rich for your blood. You gave up on Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard went to the Philadelphia 76ers. Those cats were in the playoffs. Rondo, at a certain point in time, was with the Atlanta Hawks. Those cats went into the playoffs. Then he went to the Los Angeles Clippers. I thought it was over with Rondo because he couldn't even figure out how to play among those young bulls with the Atlanta Hawks. And I thought that was a good trade for both sides, Atlanta and the Clippers. The Clippers gave up on a player that they just didn't even have in their rotation, and Atlanta gave up on a player that they didn't even have on their rotation. But either or, Rondo still was deep into the playoffs, and there was a series where they won where they didn't even have Leonard, Kawhi Leonard. So you have to give him some props. You have to give him some kudos, even though he didn't play as much as a member of the Los Angeles Clippers. I think his style his style and his attitude just did not fit with that organization and the direction that they were going. Now, a lot of people are going to blame Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard do deserve some blame, but ultimately the majority of the blame goes to Rondo. Rondo has to understand that he's not the same Rondo that he was when he was winning titles with the Boston Celtics. He's two steps slower, and at this point of time, Rondo is more of a player's coach, just like Jared Dudley was for the Los Angeles Lakers, and now he's on the coaching staff with Jason Kidd over there with the Dallas Mavericks. So getting Rondo back now, you're not getting the same Rondo that you had 3 years ago. He's more of a rah-rah guy. You're getting him for his high IQ in basketball. He's going to be more of a player's coach. Rondo would fit well with younger players. That concept would be perfectly fine for the Los Angeles Lakers if the majority of their roster was younger players. But the majority of their roster is veterans. So I don't know. I don't know why they signed Rondo. They gotten rid of all their young talent and they replaced it with a Carmelo Anthony, a Russell Westbrook, a Dwight Howard, and you still have Anthony Davis and one LeBron James and Adrien Bradley. I mean, they got players that in their prime they were great players, but now they're not. They're not great players no more. They simply not. Give them their flowers. Give them their props for having outstanding careers, for them being all-stars, for them being Olympic champions, for them being NBA Finals champions, been on championship teams, been on playoff teams. But when you look at what they have, Anthony Davis, Carmelo Anthony, you're not getting Carmelo Anthony that was with the Denver Nuggets. You're not even getting Carmelo Anthony that was with the New York Knicks. You're getting an Anthony Davis. You're not even getting Anthony Davis that was with Portland. You're getting an Anthony Davis who's a step slower, who's a year older, and the only thing he brings now, he's an okay defender. Back in his day, he was an elite defender. But this is I remember Chauncey Billups saying this about Anthony Davis in his prime. Anthony Davis would rather score 30 in a loss than score 10 in a win. Anthony Davis picks and chooses Carmelo Anthony picks and chooses when he wants to play defense. Now you got an older player, an older Carmelo Anthony that's okay on defense. He'll stay in front of his man. But all he can bring to your team is just spotting up, setting up for someone to throw him the ball so he can make that shot. I remember I was getting a lot of slack about Carmelo Anthony when I was telling people having Carmelo Anthony as your leader is a nightmare. If Carmelo Anthony, and this is when Carmelo Anthony was trying to find an NBA team. Remember, guys, for like a couple of years, Carmelo Anthony was in exile from the NBA. Nobody wouldn't want to touch Carmelo Anthony with a 10-foot pole. Carmelo Anthony was radioactive. He couldn't even find a job. And then when he did find a job, he wasn't even there long. People tolerate you when you are the ish, when you are the one, when you have talent that you're not even utilizing. You just pick and choose when you want to utilize that talent. Carmelo Anthony had the league by the balls. When Carmelo Anthony was getting older, those jobs were few and far between. And now Carmelo Anthony is just a jump shooter, which he could have condition himself into that he could have conditioned himself when he was on those Knick teams. He could have conditioned himself if he wanted to be with the Miami Heat, with the big three over there. But he would have to take a loss in salary, and he had to take a loss in him not being the leader. He had to understand going in that he was going to be the Robin to LeBron James Batman. He had to take a back seat, and that's just something Carmelo Anthony at that particular time did not want to do. But nevertheless, this is what the type of Carmelo Anthony you got today. Carmelo Anthony is an ISO player. Even though he has transitioned, he still is an ISO player. If you give him more touches to the ball, if you give him the capabilities of getting more touches to the ball, he's going to shoot it more than actually give it up. He's an ISO player. That's why he plays around the wing. People know once you pass it to Carmelo Anthony, he's going to 90% of the time he's going to shoot. Quite rarely he's going to pass it down the line, pass it to the next possible open player. But 90% of the time he's going to shoot that thing because in his DNA, he's an ISO player. The same could be said for Russell Westbrook. If you allow Russell Westbrook, if you give the ball to Russell Westbrook on the inbound pass, he's going to take it from coast to coast and he's going to shoot that thing. Rarely he's going to pass it. But more times than not, he's going to shoot it. LeBron James is an ISO player, but here's the difference between LeBron James. LeBron James has conditioned himself, you know what? I don't necessarily have to shoot all the time. I can just get my players around me in the right position, at the right opportunity, at the right time to assist to, and they can make the shot. And that's good. I'm not hating on that. You're a team guy. But when you're dealing with a bunch of ISO players that's going, once you pass it, they're going to shoot it, and you may not get that assist, it can be a living nightmare for even one LeBron James. Anthony Davis. The only problem I have with Anthony Davis is not consistently available for his team in the regular season. He has demonstrated time and time and time again, he's not, you can't depend on him to play a lot of games in the regular season or even in the postseason. He's out for some time now because he had a stomach issue. A lot of people are saying that he quit on the team when they was getting their back beaten out, back broken out, beaten down by the Portland Trail Blazers. That wasn't even a game. If Portland really wanted to, they pulled out all their starters in the second half. That's how bad of a deficit the Los Angeles Lakers were in. They would score. Portland would score. Dame Dollar would score, and then the next 5 possessions of the Los Angeles Lakers were all shot by one Russell Westbrook, and he was 0 for 5. You got Russell Westbrook throwing the ball everywhere, just a walking turnover machine. LeBron James has been out for several games. A lot of people are saying that he's not really injured. He just don't want to play. He just don't want to involve himself with this roster. Eventually, he's going to have to involve himself to the roster. If this is true, he's going to have to eventually evolve himself into this roster. because this is the same roster that you co-signed, you put your stamp on. This is the same roster you were playing NBA 2K GM mode, and this is what you wanted. Sometimes be careful what you wish for, folks. Be careful in what you wish for. So, all that being said, is there an exit strategy for the Los Angeles Lakers? I told you earlier in this live stream, no. You're stuck with what you got. You don't have a numerous, endless supply of draft round picks where you can finesse it. I'll give you three number one draft picks, and you have to take Russell Westbrook or Carmelo Anthony. They don't have that type of robust when it comes to draft picks. Nobody wants a Russell Westbrook now. So let's look at all the teams that are trying to build clout in their fan base. Let's start with the Charlotte Hornets, which, by the way, quick known fact, did you know 2 years ago the Charlotte Hornets were interested in getting Montrezl Harrell? They was going to give him a max contract, and Montrezl Harrell, which his agent was Rich Paul, suggested to him, don't chase that money. Join and hook up with LeBron James. You will win a title, and then at the end, you will have the flexibility to get out of that contract, and more teams will be coming knocking at your door, and you can get more money. How that turned out for Montrezl Harrell? He's still on that old contract. And the way how he's playing, he's never going to ever recoup that max money that he lost with the Charlotte Hornets. But let's get into the Charlotte Hornets real quick. The Charlotte Hornets will be an excellent team for if somehow the Lakers could get them to get rid of their trash, which is Russell Westbrook, and in return, they get a younger player, maybe some players that they don't want. Be an excellent place for him. The only problem is the Charlotte Hornets are fairly competitive in this young NBA season, and the community over there love that player, that love that team. I got another place. What about Chi-Town? The Chicago Bulls. The last time Chicago Bulls had a competitive season is when the King, Jesus in tennis shoes himself, a.k.a. Michael Jordan, the great one, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. That's the last time the Chicago Bulls have been competitive. Since he left, since that whole team left, the Chicago Bulls have been, they have been exploring other opportunities, and they haven't been competitive since then. Well, can't trade Russell Westbrook there because they signed Russell Westbrook. They signed Lonzo Ball in the offseason. They signed some other players in the offseason. And now they are very competitive. And a lot of people are believing that Chicago Bulls are going to make it deep in the playoffs this year. So that's another team that you can't send him to. San Antonio Spurs, no. Sacramento Kings, Buddy Hield is just a role player. Surely they would want the services of Russell Westbrook. No. The Houston Rockets, hell, we beat the Lakers with Russell Westbrook. Why would we want him? Nope. All of these exit strategies, as far as teams that are struggling, do not want Russell Westbrook. Not for that number. The only option for the Los Angeles Lakers to get out and under from Russell Westbrook if he accepts a buyout. And this was posed to Russell Westbrook in his time with OKC, with his time with the Rockets, with his time with the Wizards. He kiboshed that theory. He does not want to take He does not want to be bought out. He wants all of his money. So the Lakers are stuck with Russell Westbrook. No suitors, no takers for Russell Westbrook. Carmelo Anthony has done very good for the Los Angeles Lakers this season. They will be fools of letting him go. And if you do let him go, you're not going to get what you offered to even get Carmelo Anthony. Meaning that you have to give up more of your future, of your little future that you have, just to get Carmelo Anthony up and out from your team. So they're stuck with these players. Now, Rondo, they can get rid of. But in the midst of things, Rondo is, I feel like they're going to keep Rondo. Now, if Rondo is potentially is a roster spot, and they have the ability to sign someone off the street, but they're full, Rondo will be one of the possibilities of people that they would release in order to get another player to help them with this roster. And two, I feel like too much of a good thing could be a bad thing. I mean, too many cooks in the kitchen is going to be a disaster for the meal. This is not a quick solution or a quick fix, folks. Jeannie Buss, Rob Pelinka, the Lakers organization, the front office, the ownership, their mindset is, you wanted these players, we gave you these players, we gave up a lot for these players, you're going to have to play with these players. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Hold on 1 second. Okay, had to sneeze. But to that, I tell you this, guys. The Lakers, there's no simple solution. They're stuck with their players. They can't trade them. They definitely aren't going to release them. And if you do release anybody, it's not going to be anybody significant. That's the issue and the problem that you have. The problem's still going to be there. And the organization is telling Frank Vogel, is telling LeBron James, these are the guys you guys co-signed and wanted. So here's the guys. If anybody's going to be leaving, it might be Frank Vogel at the end of this season. But we're stuck with these guys. If these guys were younger, I can see them changing their spots. Sometimes a tiger can't change his stripes. Sometimes a leopard can't change his spots. If these guys were younger, maybe you have the ability to redevelop these players. But these guys are old. These guys have been doing it their way for the majority of their career. They ain't changing. They ain't changing, folks. Russell Westbrook is still going to be a defensive liability. Anthony Davis is not going to be consistently on the roster. And now LeBron is starting to pick up, not consistently being available. He's an older player, folks. It happens. Father Time has not lost a battle yet to any athlete. I don't care how much money you put in your body. Eventually, you wear down. You get older. You can't keep up with. This is a young cat league. This is a young bull. This is today's NBA is set up for the younger generation. It's not set up for guys that's been involved in the league over 8+ years. This is not their league anymore. If you look at the rules and how they play basketball today, this is a young man's game. No matter how much of an IQ you have, no matter how much of a basketball IQ you have, if your body cannot keep up with these guys, you're not going to be in this league much longer. Or you're going to have a lot of struggles along the way. I've said this in numerous videos. I felt like the Lakers should have kept what they had. And when you integrate a LeBron James into your organization, this guy is supposed to be the difference maker. This guy, when you place him on any roster, that roster is going to be competitive. That roster is going to contend. That roster is going to go deep in the playoffs. The one thing I felt like the Lakers made a mistake on, they gave up way too much for Anthony Davis. If Anthony Davis really wanted to play for the Lakers, he should have just played out his contract or figure out another way to get up and out of the New Orleans Pelicans. Meanwhile, the Lakers get to preserve and keep that young roster. Yeah, Lonzo Ball at that particular time, nobody wasn't going to gamble on him, particularly with the Los Angeles Lakers. And then people say, well, see, look, he's a terrible player. Look what he's doing with the Pelicans. Wow. Look what happens with a young player if you give him a couple of years, how he turns off. He's one of the reasons why the Chicago Bulls are having a very successful season. People don't talk about that. People, when they talk about Lonzo Ball, they talk about his father, and they talk about his development when he was with the Lakers in that young year when he got drafted by the Lakers. Everyone had all this expectation for him. He was supposed to be the next successor to Magic Johnson. He's playing alongside LeBron James. The guy would defend for you. The guy was a facilitator. Yeah, his shooting game wasn't there yet, but look at, if you give a young player a couple of years, and if you develop them the right way, look what he ultimately became. He became a force for the Chicago Bulls, and he's one of the reasons why they're winning. Imagine if LeBron James had that type of player on his roster, who's young, who's willing to play defense, who's willing to play in a system, who's not a ball hog, who's not an ISO player. Remember, LeBron is the ingredient that every team would want. From what you guys tell me, if you put LeBron on any roster, he makes that roster better. He keeps that roster deep into the playoffs. That's what you guys tell me. But they gave up too much, and they gave up too fast and too soon just to get Anthony Davis, just to please LeBron James. Brandon Ingram. Y'all remember this? Brandon Ingram. Oh, LeBron can't win with Brandon Ingram. Look how young he is. He's not even getting better. Brandon Ingram is still with the Pelicans. And if his contract was up today, there would be numerous teams knocking on his door as a free agent. Brandon Ingram will get max money. Have y'all seen what Brandon Ingram is doing with the Pelicans? I know, look, it's the Pelicans. But that's not because of Brandon Ingram. It's because Brandon Ingram doesn't have nothing around him. They was in the Zion Williams sweepstakes, and now Zion Williams is out of shape. That's not Brandon Ingram's fault. The New Orleans Pelicans done switch coaches. They done switch style. They done switch people in the front office. That's not Brandon Ingram's fault. All Brandon Ingram do is come in and play competitive basketball. And he's an all-star. Imagine if Brandon Ingram was with the Los Angeles Lakers today. How he's younger, he's willing to play defense, he's willing to play a role. He's not an ISO player who desperately seeking Susan, needs the ball, and is a better fit with LeBron than a Carmelo Anthony, than a Russell Westbrook, than a Rondo, a Bradley Beal. Brandon Ingram is light years better than those players as of right now. Alonzo Ball, despite what you guys say or think or believe about him, is light years better than what the Lakers have on their roster. The only two players the Lakers have on their roster that are better than Alonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram is LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But Anthony Davis can't consistently stay healthy enough to be in ball games in the regular season. Imagine if LeBron had those two players. Now there's talk that now this is an ugly rumor that's not going to happen. It has no legs for it to happen. Now you guys are saying, well, the Lakers should explore getting Ben Simmons. What is the Lakers going to give up to get Ben Simmons that's on their roster that the 76ers will want? 76ers definitely do not want Russell Westbrook, okay? And I forgot his name, I'm sorry. He was the architect for the Houston Rockets organization. I think Maury. He doesn't even want Russell Westbrook. He doesn't have experience with him. He don't want Russell Westbrook. He doesn't even want Carmelo Anthony. Doesn't want Rondo. Doesn't want Dwight Howard. They done had Dwight Howard. They've been there, done that with Dwight Howard. There's nothing on the Lakers roster where they even be interested in trading Ben Simmons. Now, if they're talking about trading LeBron James for Ben Simmons, they would do that. They would kick the tires around with an Anthony Davis because they really don't need an Anthony Davis for the Philadelphia 76ers. But they'll kick the tires around. They'll call a few more times. See what else you can do to sweeten that pot. But that's a no-go because they really don't need another big man. So I don't understand why people say that they should get into the Ben Simmons sweepstakes when they clearly have demonstrated and told the world that they're not trading Ben Simmons unless they get a significant player. They don't want role players. They don't want enough draft picks. They don't want a bunch of draft picks. They want a significant player. And I told you guys, I felt like with the Ben Simmons trade, I felt like the Philadelphia 76ers should have explored an option where you trade him to the Golden State Warriors, and the Golden State Warriors have to give up all that young talent they have been drafting for the past couple of years, plus their future draft picks for the services of Ben Simmons. But the Golden State Warriors don't even want Ben Simmons. Look how they're playing with the draft picks that they recently drafted, and the big man that they drafted 2 years ago. He hasn't even played a lot of minutes for the Golden State Warriors, along with Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson is still rehabilitating himself to get on the court. But they're winning, and there's a possibility that they could be a serious contender and a serious threat for the postseason, even though this is a young season. But the Lakers mortgage everything. They rolled the dice and mortgage everything for Anthony Davis. And look what it got you, one title in a bubble format where the majority of the teams did not even want to be in the bubble. Oh, that's ugly. When the majority of the teams wasn't even competitive in the bubble. Oh, that's real ugly. When your competition refused to even play in the bubble format. Ooh, that's real ugly. But you won the title I'm not going to call it a bubblicious title. I'm not even going to degrade it. Y'all want a title. But I told you guys in numerous videos, in numerous live streams, that's going to be the last time LeBron James wins a title. Unless LeBron James gets traded somewhere, like the Brooklyn Nets somewhere where he can just, do his thing and win titles, it's over with. LeBron James even knows that it's over with because now LeBron James, even last year, now he's chasing for all these individual stats, having the most points, the most consistent games being played, keeping his average and things of that nature. He wants to tally up all of these individual accolades in the NBA, which if we was talking about baseball, this would really mean a lot. Okay, it would really mean a lot. Him having all these accolades, these individual stats. Okay, but when you talk about basketball, people don't go into the stats. People don't even know that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar still holds a lot of these accomplishments. That Michael Jordan holds several of these accomplishments. A lot of the great players or former players hold these stats. Nobody, because basketball doesn't treat their individual stats seriously like baseball do. That's a baseball thing. That's not necessarily a basketball thing. People don't, because people don't hold these statutes or treat these statutes seriously. The one thing people treat seriously in pro basketball, in the NBA, is titles. Who have them, who don't. It is just that simple. Not how many times you went to the finals, but how many times you won. That's what people are concerned about. And how you won them. The last three-peat team was the Chicago Bulls. No, I take that a lot back. It was the Los Angeles Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. The last three-peat. And now you have teams struggling to two-peat. There was a certain amount of time. There was a certain stint of time after the Kobe and Shaq era where teams were struggling to two-peat. The last two-peat team was the Golden State Warriors. That's the last team that two-peated. Now you have today's team, they're struggling to one-peat, to get one title. They're one and done, baby. Because basketball, how the rules are done today, and I'm talking about the rules on the court as well as off the court. Uh, you know, Player empowerment. Now, players don't even stay long enough on their teams that they were drafted to. That team builds around their star player, and then after 2 or 3 years, that star player talks about wanting to leave that organization and take their talents and joins and make up super teams and things of that nature, holding that team hostage. They leave that team, and now that team is left with the crumbs, were left with a team that was built for that star player, but that star player is gone. So now they have to change their sell and change their strategy on the fly because of that star player no longer wants to be there. And that's the real reason why you're never going to see a team, not in this era. It's going to be a min of teams two-peating. Player empowerment, players moving from team to team. Players don't even stay consistently on the same team. Players are consistently moving. The new rules on the court as well as off the court. It's very hard to it's extremely hard to keep a roster to two-peat much less to just make the championship. Because every time you make a championship, you have to shuffle the decks, because now those players that were on that title, if on that team that won that championship, if they had 1 year remaining and they fulfill their contract, now you got to pay those players more money. If you don't pay those players more money, they're going to walk. All right. This instant mashed potato of, if you don't make me happy now, I'm going to leave you. And that leaves a lot of teams, giving up on their future just to make this player happy, only to later find out that this player is going to leave regardless. And now you're 88 out the gate. So in summary, before I end this, what can the Lakers do? They got to sleep in the bed that they lie in. They got to deal with what cards are currently on the table. There's nothing they can do. They have to play with what they got. There's no instant mashed potato solution down the pipeline where you can get up out of this contract, or another team may be interested in the collection of players that you have. The Lakers have grown older. They were somewhat younger last year. Now they're completely old. A lot of people are going to tell you, well, they're missing key people. They got key people on the injured report that have not played yet. You got some players on the Lakers squad that are injured and have not made their debut yet. If you want to hold to the fire to that excuse, go right ahead. But the problem that you having is the collection of players you have. You can't put Russell Westbrook on the bench. Not with the type of money that you're paying him. You're not going to put that type of guy on the bench. You're not going to make him a six man. And if you do make Russell Westbrook a six man, if he still does the same thing, it doesn't matter if his turnovers come in the beginning of the quarter or midway through the quarter. There's still turnovers that you have to overcome. Not to mention the fact that if you put LeBron at the point, when he was at the point, even though they won a title, he was turning the ball over himself. So now you have to overcome LeBron's turnovers as well as Russell Westbrook's turnovers. The only way this is going to work, in my humble opinion, is the following. You're going to have to go old school. You have to make this a half-court game. No more of that fast break stuff. Every possession has to be you have to treat every possession like it's your last possession. You can't be careless with the ball or be careless with your play. And if you are a half-court team, these guys are going to have to understand that they're going to take sacrifice as well. They're going to take a big sacrifice as well. Their playing time may be reduced. Their scoring is going to drop. Their averages are going to drop. If you can get these guys to co-sign and say, look, we have to become a half-court team, all right? We have to play every possession like it's our last possession. No more footsie-loosey being careless with the ball. We have to eliminate these turnovers. We have to eliminate these turnovers. These turnovers are killing the Los Angeles Lakers. Another thing that's killing the Los Angeles Lakers, they don't get back quick enough to defend. They have to encourage the players that they have on their roster. The same energy you use on the offensive end, you have to keep that same energy on the defensive end. You have to we have to involve each other, making a team defense. I don't think I think when it's offensively, you can space the court around because you got three players that can you know that can get theirs. All right, if you don't be careless with the ball. But on the flip side, on the defensive side of things, the same player that you depend on are they're not the it, they're not the best defenders. They're not all-star defenders like they used to be in their prime. So you have to encourage team defense, maybe some zones. Okay. But you need help on the defensive end. A lot of people are saying, well, they don't have all their players. They got some defenders, but they're injured right now. Look, it's not hockey. You can't swap them in and out every time they inbound the ball. And you're not going to be able to do that because you have to get a consistent flow with uh, your starting lineup. It's not hockey where you can just sub people in and out, and no, it doesn't work that way. I feel like strategy-wise, when those players do come back, those are players that you're probably going to depend on in the middle of the quarter and at the end of the quarter. All right, but still, the beginning of the quarter is just as important as the end of the quarter. If you can eliminate your turnovers, if you hold each possession like it's going to be your last possession, neutralize turnovers and these and play zone coverage or team defense, team basketball, then that will cut out a lot of the Lakers' mistakes. And look, I'm gonna throw it out there. I don't see the Los Angeles Lakers going deep into playoffs because eventually it's going to bite you playing this way. And the players you have are going to portray you sooner rather than later. Because you're going to have a hard time matching up with the Phoenix Suns. You're going to have a hard time matching up with the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors have a mixture of veterans and they have a mixture of young players. And the styles fit. You're going to have a problem with a lot of teams in the West. And I haven't even mentioned the East. The Milwaukee Bucks, the way how they are, they may actually repeat. If the Brooklyn Nets do not get Kyrie Irving, I think I think it's going to be a struggle fest for the Lakers. Even if the Lakers make it to the finals, and even if Brooklyn makes it to the finals, I think the struggle is going to be real for both parties. But yeah, that's the only way I see this thing working. You're not going to be able to buy out anybody. You're not going to be able to just trade them to some other team. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be a hot fix. This is simply you have to play with what you have, and you have to eliminate the turnovers, encourage team defense, maybe play some zone, and hope for the best. The people that are injured, that are better defensive players, somehow, some way make it to your roster. And even if they do all those things, I still don't see the Lakers as going deep into the playoffs because all these other teams have gotten better around the Los Angeles Lakers. They got younger and they got better. They got more flexible than the Los Angeles Lakers. The Clippers are okay. They're holding their heads above water. And they're waiting for the services of Kawhi Leonard. But I was the first guy to tell you guys, Kawhi Leonard may not even play this season. Because, he takes his injuries very, very seriously. And he will take extra days, extra weeks, extra months to make sure he's totally healed. And two, a lot of people are not mentioning this, but Kawhi Leonard has gotten injury prone, has gotten older. He's not the same Kawhi Leonard that everyone was clamoring for when he became a free agent. When he won that title with the Raptors, remember, everybody and their mama wanting Kawhi Leonard. Even LeBron James was recruiting Kawhi Leonard. Even the front office of the Los Angeles Lakers was willing to do anything to get the services of Kawhi Leonard. Okay? And he ended up with the Clippers. So, yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Remember, rate, comment, subscribe. And I'm going to say this one more time. Several people done hit me up on social media as well as in the comment section. You're talking about doing a call-in show. You guys have to show the support in having a show like that. If you guys are commenting in the comment section demanding for something like that, then cool. But you also have to show it on these next several episodes. If I get you guys to share my podcast with your friends, family, and followers, if the likes go extremely up, and if you guys are commenting night and day about doing a call-in show, I would do a call-in show. I would sacrifice the day that I normally do for something else. I would do that. Okay. But like I said, that's up to you guys. If I don't see a huge amount of support for that, then we'll see. Okay. And I'm saying a couple of I'm giving you guys the benefit of the doubt. I'm giving you guys a couple of episodes of this format, and then I will make my determination on that. But to be fair, and to be completely honest, this should instantly happen after this announcement on this episode. If I don't see the comments, if I don't see the likes go up, if I don't see a lot of you guys sharing it, then what's the point of having a call-in show? Okay. And if we get to that juncture, there's going to be rules and regulations to that as well. All right. So it's your boy, the host with the most. I'm up out of here. I will catch you guys on the next edition of Just My Opinion Podcast. Deuces, have a wonderful and productive Monday.